I am the Alarm Shark, and this is DMP Basic Programming. In this video, I'm going to show you guys, walk you through programming of the DMP XR150. This is the panel I have in my house. I chose this just because it can do security, fire, access control, just about anything you want. And I did choose it over the XT panels, just the fact that it just does so much more. There's nothing wrong with the XT or the 30 or the 50. For the basic house, I mean, as a technician, I've done this for 25 years, so this is my panel of choice. They do make an XR550. That's way overkill for a house. That's more for lots of access control doors in a business. Definitely not going to recommend that in a house. But if you can get your hands on an XR150, by all means, that's the panel. Out of every panel that I've worked on in 25 years, this one is by far my favorite. With that said, let's hop into it. I'm just going to kind of go over basics of programming in this video. I will have many other videos of the DMP panel of specifics. That way you can watch those if you have specific things that you have trouble with or want to learn. Let's start by I don't have an AC transformer plugged into this. Running straight off battery just for testing. This thing does have a quick start on it. It's located directly under the heat sink here. Of course, have the batteries plugged positive and negative, and you just simply want to trip that for about 5 seconds until you hear that relay click. And of course, now your panel's powered up straight off battery. We want to start by going into programming. The default factory code is, of course, there's letters underneath each number. You just want to spell PROG for program, and then hit command. That'll send you to programmer. We're going to just kind of skim over everything: initialization, communication, network options, device setup, remote options, system reports, system options, bell options, output info, output groups, menu display, status list, PC log reports, area information, zone information, and stop. Command cycles forward, the back arrow cycles backwards. We're going to go, every panel that I put in, I always initialize the panel. It gets out any corruption in the panel that could be there in the factory, and it starts you from fresh. We're going to initialize all, yes. The buttons here, of course, when you first power the panel up, you don't have to hit the reset jumper, and I'll go over that a little bit later. But when you first power the panel up, you can go straight into programming. But if you wait some amount of time there, that it will kick out of programming, and then you do have to reset the panel with the pins on the panel. And I'll go over that in just a little bit. Actually, I'll probably do it right now, since it's probably going to want us to reset now. So the way you reset the panel, you can see the reset jumper right there. It normally has a little black pin that shorts the two. You can simply take a screwdriver and touch the pins together. Of course, you have to do that to get into programming if the panel's been powered up. So now you can go to PROG. We can go back into programming. Now that we've initialized the panel, we're going to go to communications. And I'm just going to basically go over what you would do on an install. I'm not going to go into specifics of this video. That will be later in other videos. Any of these four up here are your menu buttons. Sometimes there'll be words on the screen. You can push certain buttons to do whatever you want on the screen. But typically command is your enter button and back arrow if you want to back out. So we want to change the account number. We can hit any one of these four and that'll blank out the account number. So whatever your central station gives you to set up this customer's account number, we're just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 and then hit enter. I typically don't have a transmit delay. If your customer sets off the alarm a lot, you may want to add that in there. It gives them a little bit of time to do whatever. So I generally set mine to 0. This panel has several paths. Depending on what your alarm company wants. I can't give you my company's name, but we typically set a primary and a backup. We typically have, this particular panel is an internet panel, so we can connect this panel to the Ethernet as a primary. That's typically the fastest type of connection out of anything. But the reason why you'd want to back up is because lots of people's networks go down. The burglar can, I'm not going to give away what the burglar can do, but we typically have backups. But the Ethernet is good for virtual keypad app, stuff with your cell phone. You can arm, disarm. You can get alarms sent straight to your phone with the Ethernet. That's typically the free way to do it. As a cellular or something like that is going to cost the alarm company money, so it's going to cost you more money to have alarm monitoring through a cellular card. So with the Ethernet, as long as you have internet in your house, you can connect that. But I always recommend having a backup. This particular panel has a phone line dialer that's kind of getting obsolete. I would much rather have the Ethernet or a cell card over a phone line. It's just analog phone lines are becoming a thing of the past, and those were typically the best choice of phone line. Voice over IP, not so much with an analog security system. But this panel does have multiple paths that you can set up. So we're going to start with path 1. And you can push any of these buttons. Now it gives you the choice of no path, digital dialer, network, CID, contact ID, or we can go to command, and then you can have the cellular or Wi-Fi. 9 times out of 10, we set it up network or cellular. In this situation, I do have a cell card mounted on the board just for testing. The cell card isn't activated, but we're going to choose cell. This is where you set up daily tests. We are going to set up a test. We typically test every 24 hours. And that's where you would set that. If you want to change that, just push the toggle button and change it to whatever your monitoring center requires. This is where you can set up exactly what time you want the system to test. We don't typically set, if you've got a business and you don't typically want to set every alarm panel that you have to the same testing time. You kind of want to just rotate them, because the more accounts you get, the better it is they test at different times. So we just typically put in, of course, don't put it on, don't test it like at 3 o'clock in the morning, because if it fails the test, you don't want your monitoring center calling your customer at 3 a.m. It's always a good rule of thumb to have it in between working business hours. But like I said, just make it random numbers, so when you have 10,000 accounts, you don't have them all test at the exact same time. And there you would set AM or PM. So we're just going to set 8:34 AM, and this button would be for AM, that button would be for PM. Cell check-in, this is required for fire alarms. Typically, the check-in is required by your fire marshal. If you have cellular only, you would want to say yes to this, and whatever your authority wants you to put in there, you got to put that to obey the law. That basically makes that cell card check in every whatever you tell it. It goes. It still sends the daily test, but that will send in minute tests, and if it fails that, then you're going to get a panel not responding to your central station. That's why we typically have multiple paths, because you can avoid putting this in if you have multiple paths. But if it's a cellular only, you have no choice. You need to turn that on. We're not going to turn it on in this situation because I'm just kind of walking you through all the programming. Right here, of course, your central station is going to need to tell you what IP address to put in there. To put it in, you simply push one of these buttons. Use the command as your decimal point. So if you have an IP of 10 dot whatever it is, whatever your central station's IP address needs to go there, just finish it up. We're not going to put anything there, but that's what goes there. But your central station has to provide you with that. Of course, they also provide you with the port number. You can say no here. I don't think there's anything in there you need to change. That's all for your cellular. You can do opens and closings, and we're just going to skip through all that. So that's how you set up a COM path. Network options. This panel used to have software that you could give the customer and they could log into. It's called System Link. That product has been discontinued by DMP. That gave you means to log in and change codes, add cards, or whatever you wanted to do, but that has been discontinued. And the virtual keypad app with the newer panels, there used to be an XR500 that has been discontinued, so we're just going to talk about the XR150 today. But the virtual keypad app will basically do anything you want that the System Link used to do. Schedules, everything. But that has to be set up with your IT administrator. That's where you would he would give you an IP, so your computer, or you do have to set up virtual keypad, and that's where you would do that. That has to be routed through the firewall to get the cell phone to work. That's not what this video is for, so I'm just going to scroll through this. Device setup. This is where, on this particular panel, each keypad has to have its own device number. Each zone expander on the keypad bus. This panel does have zone expansion on the keypad bus and also it has an LX500 bus. So you can put your zone expanders on either bus. There's dip switches on the zone expanders where you tell it if you're going to use keypads or if you're going to have it on the LX bus. I always recommend putting zone expanders on the LX bus, just because you kind of want to reserve the keypads for that, because the XR500 or the XR150 only has 8 spots. Once you go to 9, there is no 9, so that gives you the capability of doing 8 keypads. You can have an access control module on that device. You can also put it on the LX bus, but we're not going to get into all that. This is kind of like basic security, and I will go in depth later on in a different video. But we do want to set, I always start at 1. You can name it. The way you put words in, of course you would push one of these, it blanks it out. You have letters on each number. We're going to name this keypad, so we're going to hit for the letter K. Here's your K. To get the K, you have JKL, JKL. So there's your K. A space is the 9, and the third one, it's just experience. You don't really know where the space is, but it is on the 9 and the third key. That's for a space. But we're putting in keypad, so we're going to do an E. Here's your E, DEF, DEF, KE. We're going to do a Y, a P, an A, and a D. And that's how you put words in there. Each letter, and then one of these, A, B, C, A, B, C. Okay. Enter. This is where you would set up what type of device it is. This is a keypad. Of course, it comes defaulted as door. That's for an access control door. We want it to be a keypad, so we're going to just hit one of those, and you see all the choices that you have. Door, keypad, and there's the expander. We're going keypad. This is where you would tell it what areas you want the keypad to see. This panel has 8 areas, so you can have keypads on just showing specific areas. You can assign zones to specific areas. Where this keypad, it's basically partitions. They call it areas. But this is where you would say, hey, this keypad can see all 8 areas. If you wanted, and you only wanted this keypad to see area 1, you would turn off all the other areas. You would turn the stars off just by pushing the numbers. You can turn them right back on if you want them to see all areas. But we're just wanting to let this keypad see area 1, so we're going to leave the 1 starred. We're not going to go over anything depth in programming. We're just kind of running. That's setting up keypad 1 for device 1. Okay, remote options. That's something we're not getting into now. System reports. There is 1 or 2 things I want to show you in here. Realistically, the ambush. If you want to put an ambush code in the customer's system, basically an ambush code, most of you know what that means. It's, instead of hitting your normal code, you would do an ambush code, and it would turn the alarm off, and it would send us a silent alarm saying you need help. Lots of people put in an ambush code and they can't figure out why it's not working, right? Here's why. It's defaulted to no. You can say yes, you can say no. We would need to put that to yes, or your ambush code will never work. And that is under reports. That's really the only thing I want to show you in there. This is where you set up what type of system you're going to be doing. Most commercial applications are going to be an area system. You can change it if you have it in a house. I do areas in my house just because I like it better. But if you want it to be more of a residential setup, you can do either all in perimeter or home and away. There's advantages to those, but I like area. That's what I choose. So I always set mine up to areas. This is where you can set up entry delays and exit delay timers. I typically leave them. Of course, in my house, I don't have any entry delays. I feel if you have an app on your phone, you turn the alarm off before you enter the home. It does require a little training with your family. But I typically, on a normal system with a normal person, I would put a 30-second and a 60-second. But for me as a technician, I don't like entry delays, because if the burglar picks that door, he's got 30 seconds to rummage in your house without the alarm going off. So I like to be as secure as possible, so I have 0 entry delays, 0 exit delays, and I arm and disarm through my phone app, my virtual keypad. And I do it before I enter. That way I don't have any entry delays. So it's your alarm system. You can set it up the way you want. That's the way I do it. None of this I'm going through in this video. Wireless house code. If you have any wireless devices on your alarm, you have to put a number in this. It doesn't matter what it is. It cannot be a 0, though. A 0 is no wireless receiver. So to change it, any number there. You can put literally any number there and your wireless receiver will work. A 0, no wireless devices will work. You can choose to do the wireless jamming. The only time I ever turn that on is if the customer has problems with stuff blocking their wireless. They may have something in their business that makes the wireless respond weird. This is a good way to figure out if it's being jammed. I typically just leave it off, but there are some instances that I turn that on, but it's very rare. There's where you have your quick keys. It is defaulted to yes. You can turn them off if you don't want panic keys. Typically, my company requires panic keys, so we're going to leave that yes. I typically leave that to yes. In the older version firmwares, people would get confused. It would, instead of, is this a false alarm? The question, if they set their alarm off, it would be confirm or verify. Confusing the heck out of people. So DMP actually changed it in later firmwares. Now if you set your alarm off, it's going to ask you, is this a false alarm? You're going to say yes or no. If you don't want that question, you can simply turn it off. I do like it on. There's where you can, if the customer wants the weather, this keypad will do it. A touchscreen does it much better. It'll show weather On the touchscreen, you do have to have it either an Ethernet connection or a cellular connection so it can be connected to the internet. But that's where you would put your zip code in there, and that will take the weather off the internet and display it on your keypad. It's not really nice to have it on this keypad because it takes up all the screen, but on a touch screen it's pretty neat. But you do have to name the areas. You can name them anything you want, just like putting in the word for the keypad. We're going to name the first one perimeter. Of course, there you want to put the account number that they tell you at the central station. We're leaving it that. Opens and closings reports. Some monitoring stations charge extra for that. You can set up to auto arm at a specific time. I don't typically do that, but some customers like that. You can also have it auto disarm. This is kind of cool that with the outputs you can tell any burg out to trip relay 2. It's as simple as that. We're just going to name the one area. So now we go to zone information. This panel does have 10 hardwired zones, 1 through 10. And 9 and 10 are dedicated for fire zones. So 9 and 10 are 2-wire fire alarm zones. So you would have to put 2-wire smokes on those 2 zones. You can have any of the 1 through 8 to operate 4-wire smokes. You do have a relay on the panel to power smokes. We're not going over that right now. So we're just going to set up one zone and name it. We're just going to call it door. Any 4 of the keys. Now it gives you options. Do you want it to be a night zone, a day zone, an exit zone? Hit command, you have more options: fire zone, panic, emergency, supervisory, aux zone. Those you can kind of customize every which way you really want to make them work. CO, I mean, there's don't typically use all those. We're just going to set up it as a night zone. That's typically a standard alarm zone. A day zone would be kind of like a 24-hour alarm, or a fire zone. So we're going to do a night zone. I only have one area programmed, so area 1. Now if you had multiple areas, you could change it and tell it any area you want there, and then you can assign the keypad that you want to operate that area. For now we only have one area, so we're going to put area 1 there. You can say no and go to the next zone, or you can hit no and it's going to give you extra options. When this zone is, or when your panel is disarmed and it's the circuit is opened, you can put, do you want an alarm or trouble? Okay, and you can do that for, or you could trip an output. Say you wanted to trip output 2. Now if the alarm's disarmed and you short the contact, then you can tell it what to do, and it's pretty versatile. Armed and you short. Now this is when the panel is armed and you short the device. You can tell it what to do. Okay, so that's how to program a zone. This panel can have wireless zones, key fobs. Like I said, the hardwired zones can be on either the LX bus or the keypad bus. If you put it on the keypad bus, you are kind of limited. You have to know where to put the zones. That's why you typically want to put it on the LX bus. If you put it on the LX bus starts at zone 500 on this panel. Some panels have LX 600, 700, 800. This panel has an LX 500, which gives you 100 zones, 500 to 599. So these on the LX bus, you can start at 500, the next one be 501, and so on. If you put it on the keypad bus, you are limited on which zones you go. So I will talk about later about how to program zones on each bus, but for now, that's all I want to show you for the zone. I will have specific videos for zone placement and stuff like that. The last thing I want to show you, if you go to stop, that kicks you out of program. There is one more option, set the lockout code. If your company requires you to do that and set it up for your own lockout code to keep other alarm companies out of your program, or you don't want the customer, if they find out the program code, we typically don't use that, because if you forget your lockout code, you're stuck. So we don't put one in there. I am the Alarm Shark. Please subscribe to my channel, like the video. I will have more content in the future. Have a good day.